everyone, Hunter with ToastyDomain.com, and I'm here with Eliot Parker. How you doing today? Thank you for joining me.
Good, Hunter. Thanks so much for having me.
We're here at Empire Books in Huntington, West Virginia, in Pullman Square. And Eliot, before we talk about your book that was just released, you were recently given the award of Employee of the Year at Mountain West Community and Technical College. How did that feel for you?
It was a terrific honor. We have an awards assembly at the end of every fall semester, which recognizes accomplishments that faculty and staff have done throughout the year, and I had no idea I was going to get that award. We went through the awards, we had lunch, we went through the awards ceremony, and then that was the last award announced. And so I was totally shocked, totally surprised, but honored, mainly because it's an award that is selected by your peers, by the faculty and the staff and the administration, and to be thought of so highly by them means a whole lot. So it was a great honor.
Well, congratulations once again on that. And now I would love to talk about this new book, Fragile Brilliance. It's your third book that's been released. Can you tell us a little bit about the plot?
Sure, absolutely. This book focuses on Charleston Police Sergeant named Ronan McCullough, and he's responding to the assault of a college student outside a downtown sports bar in Charleston. When he goes to try to break up the fight, the assailants that are attacking the college student turn on him, and as a result, the confrontation nearly leaves him dead. They nearly attack him, or they beat him to death, basically, almost. And they do the same to the college student as well. He's nearly killed in the attack. So the story focuses on him struggling with the physical and the emotional damage of the attack, and also he's sort of doggedly pursuing the perpetrators. But what's interesting, as he gets a little bit closer to catching the people who are responsible, someone's getting there before he does and taking them out. So just when he finds out who assailant one is, and he finds out the information, goes after him, somebody's getting there first. Same happens for number 2 and for number 3. So he's got all that to deal with, plus in order to do what he needs to do to catch these guys, he's bending a lot of the rules. He's going against the code of ethics that a lot of law enforcement officers take, and that's affecting his relationships with his partner, with his family, with everybody that's sort of in his circle of life. And so he's got a lot going on, and he's really put under extreme pressure, but he is determined to find out not only who these guys were that attacked him, but also who's getting there before he does and taking them out.
So this is, like I mentioned earlier, it's your third book, and it's a mystery thriller type of book. When it comes to writing that trilogy, how did your writing of the mystery thrillers, how did that carry over into each book?
Well, I think it starts with first kind of figuring out, Hunter, what do you want to happen in the story? Some writers have a real detailed outline. Some writers just kind of sit down and go and see where the story takes them. I have a pretty good idea when the story begins where it's going to end. So it starts there. It starts with how are you going to get from the beginning to the end, and what do you want the end to be, and what do you want the climax to be? Where do you want the turning point to be where your protagonist starts to figure out what's going on? So once you do that, that really is the beginning for starting the mystery or thriller story, is determining who's your protagonist going to be, what is the conflict, what is the mystery, or what's going to be the action that drives the story forward, what's going to happen at the end, but mainly at what point does he start to figure out, or she start to figure out what's really going on. And then as you start writing the draft, you start putting in the different characters, and you put in the different red herrings that distract readers. One of the things I've learned about writing in this genre is that mystery and thriller writers are very smart, and they're very good at knowing what those red herrings are and knowing when you've strayed off the path as a writer. So you have to keep that in mind as well. They expect good stories, but they're very smart readers, and you have to make sure that you follow that template pretty closely, because if not, they're going to let you know that you didn't follow that template pretty closely.
And I like what you bring up about the red herrings and the twisting paths of the narrative. So that sort of delves into a noir genre of mystery writing. Would you consider Fragile Brilliance more of a cozy mystery or more of a noir?
It's more of a noir. This is a very, sort of gritty type of mystery thriller story. Gritty in the sense that you have some really good people. I mean, Ronan is a really good guy, despite the fact he deviates from some of the standard police protocols necessary to conduct this investigation. But the bad guys in this story and gals are really bad. So it's very gritty. It's dark in certain areas. There's a lot of not only physical tension but psychological tension that the characters are going through. So in that regard, yeah, it's much more of a noir, much more of a gritty noir thriller than a cozy mystery.
And like I mentioned, this is your third book, and they've met with very great success up to this point, and I'm sure Fragile Brilliance will be no different. What inspires you the most to be a mystery writer, or just a writer in general?
I think a lot of it comes from loving stories. A lot of it comes from, my parents were very pro-reading when I was growing up as a kid, and I can remember growing up and, that is the one thing that my parents never put a limit on in terms of money. I could spend as much money on books as I wanted. When the book fairs would come to school in elementary school, or there'd be an opportunity to go to a bookstore, they said, "Well, you just get whatever you want. Just get whatever you want. Let me know how much it is, and we'll pay for it." So a lot of credit to them that they really propelled my reading, my love of reading. But liking stories, my first set of books that I ever really remember reading was the Encyclopedia Brown Mysteries, and the gentleman whose name escapes me at the moment just passed away who wrote those series. But it was very much mystery for elementary school, and it was my favorite series. I read all the books. I think there were 16 books in the series. I read them all, and that got me on the path of liking mysteries, and I've been a fan of that genre. I read other things too, but I find myself, if I really want to go back to a genre that I really like, that really gets me energized as a reader, it's mystery, and so that's really carried over into my writing career. Being able to tell a good story, but also looking back on all the mysteries I've read over the years, and that genre, how it's set up, makes it great. Makes for great writing.
Do you think we'll see, and it might be a little too early to ask, but do you think we'll see a sequel or a next story in development?
Yes. There's going to be at least 3 books in this series with Ronan. The way the book ends, Fragile Brilliance, I won't give it away here, but the way it ends leaves it open for a sequel. And I'm working on the sequel right now. It's going to be called A Knife's Edge, which is a police term that deals with investigations. And so you've got sort of a double entendre. You've got the actual police term, but also there's a more metaphorical term for what that is. But we're going to see, it picks up 6 months after the end of Fragile Brilliance, but we're going to see the after effects of what happens as Ronan went on this investigation, and sort of the relationships that got strained along the way, and the friendships that he ruined along the way to get these guys have to be repaired. So in addition to there being the mystery and a high body count in the sequel, he's got to go back and do a lot of repair with these relationships that he severed through Fragile Brilliance.
So you would have to read Fragile Brilliance in order to understand the next book in the series?
Yes. There will be some mentions of what happened in Fragile Brilliance, but to really understand where Ronan is in A Knife's Edge, you would really want to go and read Fragile Brilliance to get context and perspective on how he got to this point.
And one final question is, for those who might not be familiar with your books, with whether it be Fragile Brilliance or any of your books, what would you say in order to encourage them to go out and purchase your book and give it a read?
I think if you like stories with good characters, I think if you like stories that keep you turning from page to page, that really pull you in, and next thing you know, 5 or 6 chapters have gone by, maybe you didn't realize you were that far into the story, I think you'll find any of my books pleasurable. I like that approach. I like that approach as a reader. I love it when a writer takes me on a journey and I get so engrossed in the story I don't realize that it's been an hour and I'm now on page 98 and I don't feel like I've been there that long. So I try to mimic that in my writing style. But I like good stories, with good characters and something that every reader can pick up and get through and realize that they're going to be told a good story. It may be a story that they're not familiar with. It may be a genre, if it's mystery thriller, that they're not comfortable with or haven't read a lot of. But I want them to feel like they're on a good journey and that they're going to be told a good story. And I feel like if I do that as a writer, no matter what the subject matter is or what the character is or what the plot is, then I feel like I've done my job. So if you like books that pull you in and carry you from one page to the next effortlessly, I would say you would like my books.
And where can they find this book available for sale?
You can get it if you live in the Huntington area or the West Virginia area. They're at all the bookstores. Empire Books and News here in Pullman Square, Taylor Books in Charleston, a lot of the other smaller bookstores throughout the state they're available there. If you have a Books A Million or a Barnes & Noble in your community, they're available there as well. If you live outside of the area, you live outside of West Virginia or Ohio, Kentucky, this part of the country, depending on where you live, there may be copies at the store if you like to get them from there. If not, talk to someone who works at the bookstore. They can get a copy for you. It just depends on where you live. It's also available on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com. It's an ebook. You can get it for your Kindle, your Kobo, your iPad, whatever you like to do. All my books are that way as well. So, and if you do get a chance to read the book, I'd love to hear your feedback on it, because that's what helps me keep going and helps me fix things that are wrong with with the stories.
Well, I'll tell you what, once I read this book, I might just give it a review on my blog, and I'd love to talk about this, especially that since the writer, the author, is a very good friend of mine. And thank you so much for joining me here today. And if I could just trouble you just for one thing, for an inscription, please.
I would be happy to, and I will write an extra special message just for you because you're my pal.
Well, thanks a lot. Eliot Parker, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me once again on ToastyDomain.com. We'll check you next time.
Thanks, Hunter.
Thanks a lot.
That's
I
great.
appreciate it.
That's great, buddy. I appreciate it.